From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training podcast. I'm going to be one of the hosts for this episode. My name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
I'm Vicky.
You are Miss Vicky. We found somebody to talk to in the SCCA. We're not just going to be. I know. We're not going to be, the other that shall not be named. I don't know if this is a Voldemort situation between these two. I can't tell. But anyway.
I've been very curious about SCCA. It kind of pops up. We do have a friend that occasionally drives in it. I don't know anything about it. And it's a big old mystery.
It is. And we're gonna break down some of the mystery today. And I don't think we'll get through it all because from what I can tell, SCCA is huge. It might even have been first. I'm sure our guest will know. But we have Heyward Wagner. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
We talked a little bit pre-podcast, the pre-podcast discussion. And, we try to get people either starting or involved in our sport. It could be, going to a track day, going to a race, going to autocross, could be driving a rally and through trees. We really don't care, just as long as they're having fun with their car. And your name kept coming up as somebody we needed to talk to about. And then in spite of Mental being one of the people who told us this was a good idea, and when Mental says something's a good idea, you usually think it's a bad idea, but that's just a mental thing. We decided to talk to you, and you decided to talk to us. So we say thank you for coming on. And we aren't great at introductions. Could you kind of give a brief introduction in case people don't know you? Because I didn't help them very much.
No, you're doing great. This is perfect. I'm glad that we've already gotten my kind of catchphrase out of the way. Fun with cars is kind of my mission. That's what I'm all about in this space. I'm a lifelong SCCA member. My theory is that my parents were at the Chimney Rock Hill Climb and saw an impending worker shortage coming and took matters into their own hands. And I was born in January, 9 months after the hill climb. So do the math. Been around it ever since. Never really ventured far outside of the SCCA sphere. It's what I grew up in. I got into flagging as soon as I could. And in my early teens or late teens, I accidentally bought a Honda Civic Si and started autocrossing in an EF and ended up going to nationals. And I just got, crazy hook everything and competition. I kind of grew up in a house where you either were an SCCA national champion or you weren't, and that was the division of humanity. We didn't really care that much about your politics or anything like that. You either had embroidery or you didn't. And so I went on a lifelong quest for SCCA embroidery that landed me in divorce and bankruptcy, and swore it all off, said I was done, right up until the point that I ended up working for the club, I guess. So I'm the senior director of rally, solo, and experiential programs. So if it's an SCCA program that uses cars with license plates, it kind of falls into my world. And I'm a reformed competitionaholic who works in the space of fun with cars and let's have a great experience. And when I put the helmet on, some of those old habits still come back. So that's my 30 seconds to get it all.
Wow, you covered almost all of our questions. But
all right, this has been a great show.
It's been a great show. Thank you for coming along.
Thanks for coming on. If they want to follow along with what you brought up. No, sorry. You don't get off that easy, sir. We finally got you. We're taking advantage of our day. So
you just grew up in it. Literally, you were a kid that grew up in the whole circuits.
Yeah, 100%. I'm true second generation. My dad It's a quick story, but it's worth it. My dad was a PhD candidate who did a lot of research in Poland in the late 60s. And they flew back to the United States right to be there for the opening of Road Atlanta. They were Atlanta area folks, and the first round of the Can-Am series at Bridge rained out that year and flooded, and so they moved it to Road Atlanta. And they missed the first race because they didn't know it had moved, and they showed up at the second race. And Atlanta region had done a ton of recruitment across the Can-Am weekend, and the recruitment worked, and they had a couple hundred people show up to flag this SCCA regional. And there were my parents staying in the middle of it with their flag jackets and their buckets and their gear. And the chief steward said, "Hey, you guys kind of look like you know what you're doing. You want to be flag chiefs?" And my parents said yes, and it went well. And they stayed involved in, organizing, working with flagging. I've got all my mom's old handwritten notes from corner assignments and stuff like that all through the 70s and 80s. And the runoffs came to Road Atlanta right after that, and that kind of became the standard. And so my dad was the first national administrator of flagging communications, and he and my mom were kind of tasked by the club to come up with a standardized flagging manual, because they were doing it different in California than they were in Ohio, than they were in Florida, and everyone came to the runoffs and nobody knew what the flags meant. So, and predictably, my dad became a college professor, and so a lot of my childhood was summers off riding around the country in a Volkswagen camper while my parents trained flaggers and going to tracks and stuff like that. And yeah, so I mean, from my first SCCA weekend on the outside was the March National at Road Atlanta. So I've been around it for a while.
I could so envision your parents in an RV camper. I should just by the way you're explaining them, it seemed like they were free spirits of the 60s and 70s and just doing what they love.
I think there was a lot of that for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. Okay,
there is the Venn diagram of SCCA flaggers of the 60s and 70s and hippies is not a perfect circle.
No,
but like binoculars either.
There's a little overlap, shall we say?
That's
just a
pretty
touch.
great.
Okay.
Great.
So before we get into what SCCA is and a ton of questions that we have about it, if you look at what the SCCA has been, it could be recently or could be over the years, what do you think that the SCCA has done well so far? Like, we're doing our good, bad, and the ugly thing. What did you do well? What didn't you do quite so well, or you might have wanted to do it a different way? And any stories about SCCA history that we need to know about? I know that's the fun one, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a few of those. I think, if you look at SCCA as objectively as possible, and I have had periods in my life where it's as a member, it consumes everything that I do. It's who I am. It's core. I've had periods in my life where it's been that for work. I've had that where I've been distant from it. But I think across all of it, when we are our best, and I think this is true for all of motorsports, when we are our best, it's when we are feeling a sense of community and camaraderie around our events. When we have full paddocks, we've got good parties, we've got, Joe broke his car and everybody jumped in just to wrench on it, and Steve is running Dave's engine because Steve's engine blew and Dave broke a spare, and just all of those, all of those stories, and that's where I think we are kind of conceptually our best. Operationally, we're going to be an 80-year-old organization in a couple of years. We're celebrating our 50th running of solo nationals, our autocross national championship this year, and our 60th running of the runoffs. And I had the pleasure of being a part of the launch of a program called Track Night in America, which kicked off in 2015. So it's coming up on 10 years, and trying to hold a program together for 10 years and keep it true to its mission and its core and direction. I have so much respect for the people in this club that have kept autocrossing and road racing and all of these kind of core foundational programs together and strong. And, we are going to talk about the labyrinth of policy and procedure and whatnot that you have to navigate to get into the SCCA world at times. But there's a lot of that, that's the connective tissue that holds these programs together. That's the thing that keeps them sustainable. That's the thing that, puts us in a position to exist for, 80 years with 60 years of road racing and 50 years of autocross. that kind of thing doesn't happen by accident.
Sure.
And so I would, it's a good and bad, and they're all kind of mixed in together. And I'm pretty passionate about kicking down barriers and getting people into the sport. But there have been some barriers I've kicked, and I've hit them real hard, and they've stood up, and I've kind of questioned, why is this thing here? And there's a lot of institutional learning across all of that. So
Sure.
that's a question. That's the answer to several of your questions.
Yeah, it is. And it may come across as we're poking at the SCCA on sometimes, and it's
as you should,
all in good fun, but it's meant to be funny, and sometimes Vicky even thinks it's funny, so it's got to be really funny for Vicky to think that I'm funny,
right?
And then the other thing is you don't get better unless you can see what other people are seeing about yourself, right? So hopefully that's the intent, or it should be taken as that. So I've got one more that added to my good, bad, the ugly question. Who do you think is doing a good job in some area of racing? Like, do you think, wow, I really like the way X group or X series is doing this? What do you want to steal?
Or
what do you have?
That's a great question. We do a year-end, my staff team does a year-end kind of retreat thing every year after our Road Atlanta time trial event. And we come up to the mountains in North Carolina, and we spend a week together with whiteboards and just kind of work through the year that was and whatnot. And one of the most shook me to the core moments I've had professionally in a long time was in one of these whiteboard sessions. And I asked, what are our competition advantages? What do we do that separates us? And somebody on my staff said, we do excellent events. We are operationally excellent. And we went through 3 or 4 more things. And this is not SCCA. I should put a caveat here. This is SCCA as an organization's 2,000 events a year. This is really kind of focused on some smaller programs. And we went through a couple of things, and somebody in the room just had this weird look on her face. And I asked her what it was about. And she was like, I just take issue with that we do excellent events concept. And I was like, ooh, okay, tell me more. I want to understand. And she was like, it's not that we don't, it's that's not a competition advantage. Everybody's fan base thinks they do excellent events. Everybody's organization team thinks they do events. If you don't do excellent events, you don't stay in this space very long. Track rental is too expensive. Insurance is too expensive. All these things are too expensive. If you're not doing excellent events, you're probably not going to stick around very long. And so I just want to acknowledge before I name any names here that my position in this industry, more than anything else, is that our real competitors are not each other. Our real competitors are Xbox and 5Ks and Tough Mudder and all of these things that are super easy to do, that don't have a lot of barriers, that don't have 80 years of maturity that you have to navigate to get to the core of. There's a lot of layers. And I know that everybody in the industry likes to talk about rising tide, raising all ships and all those things. But, we go to PRI, we talk to other sanctioning bodies, we ask them, what's going on in their world, how can we work together? I think that's all really, really important. But to answer your direct question, I have a really great professional and personal relationship with the folks at Grid Life. I think that they are redefining what semi-pro professional racing motorsports time attack can look like. Their mission of inclusion in motorsports is incredibly admirable and easy to support. And I'm just a really, really big believer in Adam and Chris and everything that they do. And we have an official partnership with them where we're part of the North American Time Attack Council, along with Global Time Attack and Grid Life. And so we sit down together, we talk about the sport, we talk about dates, we make sure that we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. And that's been a really great partnership for us. There have been some venues that we couldn't get into by ourselves, and Global was able to stand with us and help us get into some spaces. And I actually went to a couple of super lap battles to help manage Global's events through our partnership. And so I think, and when I look at Global, and I see this really high-end time attack piece that they're able to put together with partner interaction and all of that. And I look at Grid Life and see this super inclusive hugs and high fives program and how that all works. And I really think that those are important things. It's important for Grid Life to go out and get people excited about being on a racetrack. And it's important for Global to go out and show people what the pointiest end of pointy end can look like.
Right.
And it's important for SCCA to be at the table with these 2,000 events, because combined, they've got like 20. And there needs to be a whole lot more in the hopper if we're going to bring people in for that. So
Well,
I think those are all.
No, I think that part of it too is you also have to make it approachable, because sometimes coming to the track, it I know for us, when we started, it was a big learning curve. There was a lot of jargon, there was a lot of startup, and it seems almost intimidating until you show up and realize that you can do it. And I think that's why we started this podcast, was just to make racing approachable. Because a lot of people say, well, I have a car, but I don't know what to do next.
Nobody can get on track.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best example I can give is that if you are a NASCAR fan and you want to go watch a race at Charlotte Motor Speedway, there is this massive bridge with flags and signs and all of these things that funnel you right into those grandstands, right past the t-shirt stands. Get your beer, get your hot dog, get your t-shirt, find the seat. That machine is built to get people in seats.
Right.
If you want to drive on that racetrack, you can do track night there. You can do Chin goes there, Jzilla goes there. All these different programs go there where you can drive your street car on that track. But if you don't know that the gate to get into the track to drive it is on the back side of the oval, you'll never get in there. Somebody has to tell you where that gate is. And to me, like, that's the ultimate, like, that's one of the ultimate metaphors for the challenge of motorsports. Like, people, if you're inside the sport, you will scream bloody murder that how much time it takes and how much money it costs are the barriers to entry. That's the issue. If you're outside the sport, the only barrier to entry is knowledge. It's knowing that the gate that you have to drive through, you can't see, and somebody has to tell you it's there.
Right. Exactly.
And Charlotte is not a small facility, as we both know.
No, no.
You can drive around there, especially with a trailer, and it can take 15 minutes easy. Not a problem. Not a beginner track for those who are looking to go on track, though.
No, I don't know. I think so. I'm going to take the bait on that one. I think every track in America is a beginner track. Every single track. And I say that as somebody who grew up. Well, I grew up at Road Atlanta, and the first time I drove on it, it scared the bejesus out of me. But here's a huge problem with motorsports culture, and it's the perception that to be on a racetrack, you have to be driving as fast as you can go. And like, that's not true in any other sport. Nobody puts you in a ski resort and says, go run the slalom course as fast as you can. Like, you get a chance. And yeah, my metaphor is already broken, right? Because bunny slopes exist, and this track is clearly a bunny slope, but whatever. But if you can do pace laps on a track, you can do novice laps at your comfort zone and be just fine. And people,
that is true.
Like this is another core like tenet of what I believe about this sport. Like, we suck at recreational motorsports. Snow sports is amazing at recreational snow sports. Water sports is amazing at recreational water sports. Motorsports and racing in American culture are the same thing. We don't even bother putting car racing in front of it. We just call it racing. Horse racing puts a horse in front of it. Boat racing puts a boat in front of it, because you can have a horse without racing. You can have a boat without racing. But if you got a race car, it's a race car, right? It's not a motorsports car. I digress. But like, that's such a huge part of this whole barrier, that the idea that this has to be dangerous because you have to do it at 10 tenths, because driving a Miata with the top down on a racetrack at 80% with a huge grin on your face isn't okay. You've got to be at 100%.
Yeah, I was strictly saying it's not a beginning racetrack, like as in racing, because we did the roll there. I get it. A little too early.
But you rolled the soapbox in front of me, and
I know it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Once you said it's not a beginner, there's no beginner racetrack. I'm like, are you familiar with the Blue Bushes at Watkins Glen? But anyway, I know you are. So, all right. So here's a question for you. Just lob this up. SCCA is what?
The federal government of motorsports.
It seems to be. You know how long it took us to figure out? It took us 2 years to figure out that solo and autocross were the same thing, because I couldn't find autocross on your website.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have fought a battle within our office at times to put autocross on the website instead of solo and those sort of things, because it is, again, knowledge is a barrier, right? It's hard to do. I think SCCA, I want to broaden my answer a little bit. SCCA is a membership organization, right?
Sure.
So what does that mean? That means that an awful lot of our decisions about classing and structure and policies and procedures are made by member committees and member input. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that when we decide where are we going to put a new car, and I'll just pick on the new AE, the new GR86.
Like that car.
Are we going to immediately put that in a car class where it's going to dominate? Probably not. Why not? Because our members have already bought other cars that they have and they've developed, and they don't want their apple carts turned. That's the difference between a member-driven organization and a business. A business will say, okay, there's a great new car that's come out, and we might be able to get a couple of thousand members who've bought them to come in and meet us and be a part of us. And SCCA often, because of our design, will kind of shun a new car because we've developed the old car and we like the old car, and we don't want something to come in and make us go buy a new car right now. And I think that is kind of an extreme illustration, but like that's one of our big challenges. Like at our core, what are we here for? Are we here to grow the sport and get more people into motorsports? Or are we here to make sure that the members get the experience that they want on the dues that they pay and all of those things? And in my opinion, the answer has to be yes to both. But the challenge often is we're built, 80 years young to do one of those things. And, and then you take the reality that our ultimate bosses in all of this are our board of directors, who often come in, from a program. We have 8, and are looking to make sure that their program holds a course or sees a change. And now they're trying to govern 8 and help us govern 8. And they term out after 6 years. And so while we are an almost 80-year-old organization, at the most, we have 6 years of experience at our highest level. So
you got turnover.
There's some reasons why this world can be difficult to navigate. But I'll put in a little bit of a plug here. I got into the staff role because I had left and had gone and worked in summer camps for a while, and really dove into that world and learned a lot about what was happening in experiential education and outdoor leadership. I got to work with some incredible people, and I came to Solo Nationals in 2013, and our chairman board of directors asked me if I bought into this idea that Solo was a stepchild, and I didn't really have anything to lose. And so I just kind of laid into him about what would happen if we took the budget that we put towards the runoffs and we spent it on marketing Solo Nationals and autocross. And what if we spent the big wad of cash on the accessible program instead of spending the big wad of cash on the program that requires a roll cage and a fire suit and a license and that got me invited to come talk to the board of directors. And when I got there, instead of talking about budgets and marketing and all those sorts of things, I really want to talk about experience. And I want to talk about the fact that summer camp could send everybody home happy. You could come to summer camp for a week. You signed a waiver. You went through a gate. You existed in a space surrounded by a fence. There was community, there was camaraderie, and everyone went home happy. And in motorsports, you sign a waiver, you go through a gate, you exist in a space surrounded by a fence. There is community, there is camaraderie, and all too often, the half a dozen people who took home first place trophies went home happy, and everybody else went home grumpy. So what are they doing so right that we were doing so wrong? And that gave an opportunity to build a team that built the Experiential Programs department that was really targeted at let's try doing things differently. Let's look for a balance between what the members want and what the market will support. Let's look for a balance between competition and recreation. And we're almost 10 years into this experiment, and at some level it feels like we have 2 completely different philosophies inside the organization, and at another level we have the ability for each of those. That's the worst way to see it, right? But the best way to see it is each of them can learn from each other, and a tremendous amount of what we've been able to do in experiential has been because we've built it on the shoulders of the road race program and the solo program and these these other programs. But to me, I don't even remember what question I'm answering here, but to me, this is an and answer. Like
right.
If we're going to be successful as a sport, if motorsports is going to be viable, it has to be recreational. It has to have competition. It has to be for fun. It has to be for serious. It has to be all of these things, because, Burton sells a whole bunch of snowboards to people that don't go to the Olympics. But they get a whole lot of attention to snowboarding by getting a couple of people to go to the Olympics, and we can learn from that.
But back to the idea of solo makes racing approachable. It is affordable, like you said. It's almost like the gateway drug, if you think about it. And
it's not free though.
No, it's not free, but
the first one.
Right. But it's approachable in its cost, and it's approachable in its excitement, and to get ramped up
prep.
into it, and then and prep. Yeah. So you can actually start taking, further steps, especially with the track night in America. We actually went to one of those also. And again, it makes it approachable. And that is something that actually should be kind of pushed a little more, because then people can take the jump and take the leap, saying, you know what, I think I can do more of this. I got a bug. I got an itch. Yeah.
I think that you mentioned a little bit about the SCCA jargon and the and all those things, and it's all valid, right? But I think Solo's biggest problem is that, number one, just societal problem, right? Let's just acknowledge it. Nobody knows what to do in the social media era yet. Like, we're just trying to figure all that out, and so much of autocross, there's, compared to other motorsports, there's not as much seat time in autocross.
No, there is not.
and you have to work, and those are barriers, but they're also an opportunity for people to stand around and talk. And standing around and talking in 2023 feels a little more snarky to me than it did in 2013.
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
You want us to sit around and talk? What the heck? I could just text the guy from across the place.
Exactly. And there was a day and age in the United States where if you said something rude to somebody, they could punch you, and now they can't even get in the same room as you. But that's neither here nor there. But I think autocross has gotten this kind of bad rap because of some bad actors in social media space that are not majority population. And you take that minority population of bad actors and you combine it with and I'm not being rude, but an archaic rule set, right? This rule set was born 50 years ago.
Right.
And it has 50 years of member tweaks, which is basically somebody saying, I think my car should be lighter. I think I deserve a bigger turbo. I want this. I want this. We've never really looked at it holistically and said, does this make sense from outside of our window? And then the third piece of that is, the very first time you show up, 99% of the time, the first thing we want you to do is sift through that rule book and tell us what class you're in. And the next thing we do is we time you, score you, and compare you to people who are really freaking good at it. And so this most accessible, most affordable, easiest way to start getting competition in motorsports has toxicity, confusion, and defeat as the first three things you're likely to experience in it. So we're actually looking right now at, how do we take what we've learned from track night? No timing, no scoring, just go drive and have fun. And how do we build that into autocross? How do we build, this is that balance of recreation and competition. We need both. We need 1,100, 1,200 people to show up at Solo Nationals and have an awesome week in Lincoln, Nebraska, and sing karaoke and play Foursquare and, go to the taco party and compete hardcore. And then we'll need, in my opinion, another 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 people who autocross on any given weekend, or maybe even any given weekday, that don't care about their times any more than the average snow skier does about theirs. And that's the crux of all of this. Like, how do we bring recreation into a space that's been dominated by competition?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know how to follow that. So I'm going to change subjects a little bit. I'm like, he
that
went
was
like
really
four
good
different.
though. That was really good.
Like,
I mean,
you kind of brought up too
that
many
is the
things.
forever question, I believe,
Yeah.
in the hurdles
I mean,
of doing this.
I mean, to be, you probably don't listen to our podcast because 8 billion others don't either. So don't feel bad.
Yeah.
But we really haven't, as a team, we have not until this season ever cared about our lap times. We cared about getting
Mhm.
better.
Right.
Yep.
If the lap times came, and I don't think Vicky, if you ask Vicky right now what her fastest lap time is in which car at what track, she would have no idea. I think her first guess would be a minute something. I think that's about as close as she's going to get because it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And eventually we'll get competitive, but we're to be fair, we're not good enough yet. So
right
we'll
now,
get there.
right now, our whole thing was that as long as we continue to train, the timing will come. And
Yeah, absolutely.
right now, we don't look at so much time as we focus on the track
Well,
and
so-
trying and how best can we get around the track and navigate traffic.
Yeah.
And then the time will come. And I think actually this past year into the next year, well, this year's a short year for us, but for next year, I think this is the actual time when we actually thought about competing. Like, let's see if we can really do it. We've been training for a long time. Let's really see if we can focus and do this.
We'll still need training, but that's a different story. So speaking of,
We're always in training,
always, that's
forever
right.
in training.
That's right.
Amen.
Vicky originally named us. She's like, let's be garage heroes because we're into superheroes and comic related stuff. And I'm like, it's a little, I believe the word I used was presumptuous. Let's add the in training part because I don't think we're going to be garage heroes for a quarter. So,
Yeah.
and I have data to support my guess is correct.
Yeah.
So we did, when we first started, we did one race, endurance race, and we said we're driving home from there. And this is the longest intro to a question ever. We were driving home, and I'm like, I think we found our idiots because everybody was great and we had a great time. So the next time we go, instead of being 4 people in one car, we're like, how hard can it be? Let's get 2 cars and have 8 people who only 4 of them have been in a car before on a track.
And the whole paddock were teenage drivers.
Yeah, no problem. We're good.
That was a good decision.
So believe it or not, after beating our head against this wall for about a year and a half, I found out that there's this thing called an HPDE, which did not start with horsepower something. I had no idea, much like solo is autocross. These are the things that you learn with time. And so then, I'm an engineer. I'm a geek. Sorry. I decided let's go sample over the next year and a half all the different HPDE groups that we have in our area and find the best one that fits what we want and what we need, and we fit into their culture. Awesome. And then we found out that there are certain organizations that are lapping organizations, and then there are other organizations that are learning organizations. And depending on what we're trying to do, if we're trying to just practice, we like the lapping ones because we get a lot of track time. But if we're trying to improve, we like the learning ones. So in the longest question in the history of the Garage Heroes and Training podcast, where does SCCA HPDEs, where do they fall in this spectrum? And I don't mean spectrum in terms of, spectrum, but whatever. It sounded like a question, I think.
I love it. I love it so much. So I'm going to, the only appropriate way to respond to that is by answering a different question, I think.
Sounds like a perfect podcast guest to me.
Yeah. So I think that so first of all, again, SCCA, 52,000 members, 115 regions, 2,000 events a year. As much as I would love to be able to pigeonhole us on anything from a consistency and brand and market position, we are all of the things in some part of the country at some point in time, one way or another. What I can answer direct. Yeah. What I can answer. And when I say all the things, I mean the good ones and the bad ones. But what, to me, so my experience with in-car instructors, my experience, not a global, this is how they are statement, but my experience is too many of them are either in the passenger seat to try to push a driver to a limit, a time, a place, get them to do something they didn't know they could do. And it becomes about that passenger seat, either getting their jollies of, I got them to do something they couldn't do, or I got mine to go faster than yours, or there's some kind of gamesmanship with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the good kind of the bad kind. The bad kind of the bad kind are the guys that thought they were going to be pro racers, that were told they were going to be pro racers. They had all the skills, all the credentials, all the things to be a pro racer.
Time invested.
And pro racing is a nasty, ugly business. And you either make it or you don't, and most don't. And the people who put all their eggs in the I'm going to make it no matter what basket and didn't are left with instructor. That's what they have left. And so you've got somebody who is angry at a world that took something that was rightfully theirs, right? They were the fastest guy on the track. They didn't have the dad who could write the check, but they were the fastest guy on the track. And they are now the gatekeepers. They are now the people that have to sign off on you and say that you're good enough. And it's not the majority. It's not all. It's certainly not the majority. But that learning space, candidly, is another space we need to do a lot of work, especially the on-track learning space. So, and then going back to my major theme here of recreation versus competition, so many track day groups are competitive. You're trying to work your way up to the instructor group so that you can ride along and not have to pay as much entry fee and be part of the in crowd and be elitist. And so like you've still got competition going, even in your lapping organizations. So when we built Track Night, one of the very first decisions we made was no in-car instruction. And I don't know if you guys were on forums and social media way back in 2014, but we got roasted. I mean, just roasted by every instructor on the planet. We're going to kill people. This is the most dangerous thing ever. They're going to get racetracks shut down. This is going to be just awful. And we battled for about 2 years to get through all that. And we still see it. There who's the guy who had the car fire at New Jersey?
Mark Petronas. Mark Petronas.
So he posted the other day that he'd signed up for his first Track Night event at Lime Rock. And if you read the comments in that thread, about half of them are, most dangerous track day program in the country.
Nope.
The reality is we're partnered with Haggerty. Haggerty's on-track insurance is one of our official partners. Insurance companies like programs that don't tear up a lot of cars. That's kind of their business. And they tell us that our program is amongst the best in the country in claim rate. And we cheat a little bit because we only run 3 sessions. So we get people home before they run out of brakes and brains. But overall, we've been really successful with it. So I guess to go back to your learning versus lapping, one, they're not mutually exclusive.
Oh, for sure.
But I think that my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, the very best place to learn car control if you want a passenger, if you want an in-car instructor, is on an autocross course. I would much rather see an instructor in a passenger seat of a Miata spinning through a parking lot at 45 miles an hour than the passengers in the passenger seat of a race car coming unglued going through 12 at Road Atlanta, 80, 90 miles an hour minimum. And those are, and once you've got that baseline, then go to the track to do the perfecting, to do the dialing in, to learning all those things. But was that a long enough answer to the longest question?
No, that was a good answer.
I'm not sure. It might be 50-50 of who took the longest on that. It's not a bad ratio, though. We'll take it.
Captain's log supplemental.
Miss Vicky.
Yes, sir.
You know what?
What?
I've been thinking about this Sentinel system.
Yeah. Tell me about the Sentinel system.
So what I was thinking was we have the one car that's got the aim dash that's slowing us down. Because installing the aim dash it probably is easy, but it's quite hard the first time. And we haven't figured that out yet. The Sentinel system is really easy to set up. So what I was thinking was, why don't we put it in the Lemons car? and we'll worry about the AIM data information separately, and we'll kind of break it down into a project, because then we'd have the motorsports video system that we really, really want, and we'd be able to stream it. We just won't have the data inside, but we have the data outside, so we can combine them later. But I think that's a really good solution.
So what does this Sentinel system do?
Well, if it had the AIM data, it would have all the data on the screen, and you could see all their telemetry and everything live. But we'd be able to not only record it for viewing after the race, but we could actually watch our car during the race.
Ooh, like on the monitor and everything?
On a monitor, if you were at home and I was at a track, or if you were at the track and I was at home, depends on who gets the short straw, but we'd be able to watch each other.
It's something I've always wanted to do.
And you know what? If you're driving, you know what you can do on the Sentinel system?
What's that?
You can communicate to me with your hands, and I can't do a thing about it.
Even better.
So, if you need to give a wave or a jersey wave, whatever you need, we could save it and see it on the screen. And then you can have up to 3 different cameras, and it'll have picture in picture. You'll have the basic main shot out the front window, and then 2 cameras where you put them wherever you want. One could be on the driver, or one could be on the rear view. It's kind of cool.
Then we can upload it onto YouTube.
We could bore millions of people on YouTube.
I love it.
All right. Very well. You know what the only downside I see about this?
What?
Your mom and my mom are going to be panic stricken the entire weekend watching this thing to see if everything's going well.
This is true.
We probably shouldn't tell them.
I like the idea of having a Sentinel.
Mm-hmm. Well, luckily we have maybe 2. Depends on how things go. We're going to try. All right. That sounds like a plan. That's the project. We got to get that ready for the next race.
Sounds great.
All right. Very well. Thank you, ma'am.
So what is the SCCA's approach to sprint racing?
We haven't been, so we need to know.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I guess what it is I know at this point, I know that SCCA is a car club, and I know that you have a lot of programs, but what are the programs that you were involved in? I mean,
so the programs that are in my department: autocross, road rally, rallycross, hill climb, time trials, track events.
Okay.
We support the Starting Line School, which is an autocross program. We support Street Survival, which is a teen driving program that uses autocross space, partnered with BMW, CCA, and Tire Rack. And the easiest way to think of it is if you do it inside of SCCA and you can do it with a car with a license plate, it rolls up in this group of programs.
Right.
The other program is sprint racing, road racing, and the enduro program that we're really just trying to find a core identity for at the moment. We really haven't cracked that one yet. Mm-hmm. And our sprint racing program is probably the place where we do the best job of serving our existing long-term embedded members. If you open up Sports Car magazine and you flip to the back to the anniversaries and you see the people that are getting their 40, 50, 60 year pins, a lot of those folks are road racers. That's where we have kind of that core thing.
They're the sprint racers, you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which can also make that the hardest part of the club to crack into, because it's the part that, it's the one that has embedded. The highest level of, embedded. And with that comes some level of, and this is where we get into that conversation of, is it good or is it bad? Like, great example, to road race with SCCA, you have to have a license, you have to have a medical, you have to be a member, more or less, right? So if you are trying to decide what organization to road race with, and there's another organization that doesn't require you to have a medical, or doesn't require you to join, or doesn't require you to have a license, that might look more appealing. That might look like less barriers. That might look like a better place to go play. The reality is SCCA is one of the few organizations in the world that provides injury insurance for participants. So at an SCCA event, if you have an incident and you are injured, you've got, and I can't remember exactly the numbers, but somewhere in the range of $10 to $15 million of medical insurance as secondary medical insurance, which means that when you leave an SCCA event in an ambulance, we're riding with you. We're still engaged. It's not good luck with that. And so because of that, we do have some obligation to our members as kind of shareholders in our organization to make sure that when we put somebody on a racetrack who could injure themselves or others, that we've done a medical, that they have a license, that they're vetted. And we have some obligation to our members that are on the racetrack with that person to make sure that we've done those things. So is it good or is it bad? Right? Like this is where being an 80-year-old organization is more complicated. And then the other kind of ugly truth about insurance is your quote unquote track record is incredibly important in how your insurance works. And if you're a startup and you've never had an incident, you look different than an organization that has 80 years of history and whatnot. So there's places where we have to be more protective and whatnot. And all of that comes off to the new person as we don't want you, bureaucracy, it's
elitist.
Not important, right? All of those things. And it is, right? It is elitist. Like you go to the runoffs, it is an incredibly elite event by design, by intention.
Right.
And that's our flagship event, right? It's supposed to be that. But that becomes the brand is hard to, brand being what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Right.
It's hard to crack that. But there's this other side of the story that is, we're a membership organization. We care about our members. We take care of our members. When you get hurt, we ride with you. Right. That is different than how most organizations approach it.
Yeah. And to further augment a little bit your answer is, as far as I know, you're the only U.S. racing license that's recognized by the FIA internationally. So you must be doing correct, yes. You must be doing something right. I've got a racing license from another organization which has reciprocity with you, and eventually, when I figure out what the hell I'm going to do with you guys and how to talk about it, I will be there, and I will lose with the most effort you've ever seen. And I am going to take DFL like nobody's business, but I'll get better.
One thing I will absolutely promise you, we have 115 regions, about 90 of them autocross, about 40 of them road race, 35 or so to do rallycross. We've got, all of these little pockets, right? I promise you that every single one of these pockets has somebody who will help you get from where you are to where you want to be. There is somebody in every one of those that is passionate about bringing new people in, that will help you navigate it, that will help you figure it out. There's somebody else who's going to make you feel like an idiot, right? Like there's plenty of each, but we definitely have people who care about bringing new people in. Right. Every organization has their grumpies. Every organization has their happies, and we are happy to help you find the happies.
Right. Need that one group that is just out there going, come on and join us.
Yep.
I mean, to some extent, we have volunteered ourselves. Like we have a race coming up this coming weekend, and we are behaving in an ambassador type relationship with two teams who've never done this before. One of them will be paddocking, actually sharing the paddock with us. We rented them a garage and everything else, and the other team has decided to go it alone, but we'll still be there. And I'm actually texting them while we're talking because they just found out that regular .3 brake fluid and normal street pads aren't going to be the way to go this weekend. And I'm like, I got you covered, man. So luckily, but I think the ambassadorship responsibility to me and some organizations has been fulfilled, and they almost have a setup structure. And then in others, it's the exact opposite, where you go to an event and they will bad talk. Pick an organization. You could say it's NASA, or you could say it's Lemons, or you can, and it's just guys, it doesn't matter. It's a car.
Yeah. The tribalism in the sport, and really going back a couple of topics, the relationship between SCCA, Grid Life, and Global Time Attack was built on the idea that tribalism is terrible for us.
It is.
That, feeling like that I run with this organization and they are my friends and therefore everybody else sucks. Yep. Is just real bad for the whole space. And it's so rampant. So, I am who I am by defining myself as not you. Right. Is a real problem.
Yeah, we got so much pushback when we did our survey of the 12 or 13 different HPDE groups and came back with what we thought was the best. And, the places we went, they were like, no, we're the best. And I'm like, well, how many have you tried? Well, I haven't gotten any of them. I'm like, how do you know you're the best then? And trust me, I've tried you. You weren't the best at all. So it's just, I just want to see people get better. That's, we're never going to be a monster podcast because we're not aimed at, interviewing everybody who's got fancy names. We're interviewed at actually trying to help people get better. So that's okay. We'll get there someday.
I mean, then again, going to all these organizations, there was a realization on the purpose of each of these organizations. Just because that it didn't serve what we thought it would be didn't mean that it didn't serve that purpose for somebody else. They're not there for the education part. They're there for the track time. They are looking for something different. And that's one of the understandings that we came to, our
I
quest.
absolutely agree. I mean, I think everybody finds, I said at the beginning, there's no distinction in doing excellent events anymore.
No.
You can't stay in business and not do excellent events. They've got to be excellent for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, especially with the choices you have.
Yeah. And so the distinctions come down to, are you intentional about your culture? Are you able to bring, I think one of the biggest distinctions right now in motorsports groups is how do you deal with the people who are a problem? How do you deal with the people who don't fit into your culture? Do you tolerate them? Do you address them? What do you do with that? And, I think, and I spoke very highly about Grid Life before, and this isn't me speaking highly of them now. That's going to be their next big challenge, is that they're growing at a rate where they're bringing people in that have different ideas and motivations than they've probably had at the beginning. And it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that. That's going to be their big growing challenge.
Yeah, I think that's Adam's biggest concern right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, the one thing we've always fought for, our team is at least 50% female. Not that that's the only, different type of person than traditional white male racing. But, trying to make sure that we could easily double. Let's just do the simple math. We could easily double if we just had the same proportional amount of female racers as we had male racers, because even with all the females we have, there's still more than 50% female. So the math works out. That's a quick double. And I wouldn't mind building some more tracks because we have too many people. That one would not be bad on my end at all.
Yeah, we ended up in our situation because we ambassador teams or people that come, we welcome them to come, and either HPs or whatever. Every year we put in an all girls team, all girls, and nobody's allowed to touch the car. The girls have to do the work on the car. If it gets to a point of a complication where we can't solve a problem, or if it's something larger than we could handle, then
as you would with an all-male team.
Right. But I think the goal is to, you girls can do this and you don't need to depend on anybody.
Yep.
We managed to snag more girl racers out of that because they were empowered enough to do it.
Yeah. You're scratching the surface of two fantastic conversation topics. One being building more racetracks and the other being women in motorsports. And I'm going to stay on the women in motorsports one, but point at the other one while we do it. SCCA autocross is one of the very few places where there is a segregation of competition by gender. You have open classes and then you have parallel ladies classes. And we actually have been doing a really in-depth study conversation around this over the last couple of years that was kind of born out of the fluidity of gender in the United States and how do we define and where do we draw lines, but quickly became a conversation around, what is the value of a ladies class in 2023 anyway? Why does this matter? Why is this important? Well, what's interesting is there is. And
really,
the reason that there has nothing to do with capabilities or capacities or anything like that. And has everything to do with how some people prefer to consume the sport. The culture is different. The attitudes are different. The example that I kept coming back to in these conversations was if you watch international soccer, goal scoring celebrations are very different in women's teams than men's teams. Men's teams, you've got one guy doing a knee slide, ripping his shirt off, taunting the fans, and everybody else is kind of around him. And two guys look pissed off because they didn't score the goal, and four guys are walking back to line up, and it's very individualistic. And in women's sport, those celebrations tend to be a little bit more inclusive. It tends to be a little harder to determine exactly who scored that goal.
Right.
And we've observed in these conversations that difference in camaraderie exists in grids. That
Really?
a open class grid is much less likely to celebrate the win of the winner than a ladies class grid. And it's important to note that it's open in ladies. Women who want to run in the open category can. We do not exclude anyone from open. And I don't know what gender politics and things are going to do over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's entirely possible that at some point in time, for a variety of legal reasons, it doesn't make sense for us to offer the parallel classes any longer. But a conversation about, is there a value to having this separation continue, resulted in, I think, a similar thing to what y'all found, which was when you have a women's only team, you get a different result than when you have mixed gender or just men. And I'm open to the idea, if not of the opinion, that more opportunities for women to consume motorsports together without the ego-driven, chest-beating, male-dominant competition experience ruining it for them might be another way we can grow.
Indeed.
I never really thought about it that way.
Indeed. Well, this brings me to the saddest part of this podcast. We have to end, but we would love to have you on. Coming soon to a theater near you for the same low price.
Have way more questions. We just know we're on a time limit for you.
We didn't even get to our dumb questions yet.
Yeah, no, I love it. I thoroughly enjoyed this. You guys are great. I love what you're trying to do. I love why you're doing it. We need more people that are being ambassadors and information sharers and wall kicker downers and all of those things. And I'm happy to make time for y'all anytime. And anytime I get a chance to talk about like who SCCA is, who we're trying to be, how we can get there, it's a look. I mean, I've only been around it my whole life, and I'm still figuring it out. But it's it absolutely can be a steep hill to climb to get into. When I say get into the organization, I don't mean buy a membership card, but to make this a part of your community. But the great thing about that is, once you get inside those walls, they're pretty tall and they hold you in pretty good. So we need to make some more ladders and make them easier to get over and get more people in.
And a Rosetta Stone would be awesome, just to train.
Yes. We love acronyms. Oh my God, are we good at acronyms?
The dictionary section of the website.
Could you at least give me a flow chart? Give me something like car with fenders, car without fenders. Yes, no. Something so I can get there. Because I don't know which red Corvette color I need.
When we launched Track Night, we invented a character to be our customer service manager named Jack Track. And it's based on the Bill Murray character from Stripes, who says to the general at the end, "That's the facts, Jack." And so everything was supposed to be kind of this Bill Murray, let's have fun with this tone. And we found out really, really fast just how wrong we were about everything, because we kept getting people asking us questions with abbreviations, class abbreviations, whatnot. And we kept having to respond to them. I need to know what program you're in, what division you're in, they would say, "Hey, can I bring my SM car to a track night?" It's like, well, is that a spec Miata? Is that a street modified car? Is that a
car with black leather around it?
Car?
Whatever.
What is it? So yeah, dude, and to your other question, we have talked, I would bet 5 separate iterations of let's build the SCCA dictionary, and nobody knows where to start. Nobody knows where to start. So yeah, if you
start with the first one,
that's my question right here.
If you send us 1,000 words to define, we will do it, but nobody knows where to start.
Okay. You have no idea what you just opened, but that's fine.
Let's go.
It'll be in Excel, but I apologize ahead of time, but it'll be there. Okay. Right. Not a problem. Heyward, thank you for coming on. We didn't get to talk at all about your driving. We didn't get to talk at all about a ton of things about the SCCA, but it seems like you have tons of stuff going on and tons of things that are working and new stuff all the time. How would people keep up with you? How would people contact you? What's the best way to try and dig into the SCCA? What do you think?
Well, I would start at scca.com. And if you want to find an event, I would just go ahead and put the slash and the word fun, and that's going to bring up a generator that's going to tell you about events near your zip code, and you can pick by program and come and check something out. If you've never done anything with SCCA or motorsports before, number one, track night was built for you. You can come and drive on a racetrack for the very first motorsports experience. That's what it's for. Number two, find an event and come check it out and ask questions and tell people you're interested in. And number three, oh my God, if you wanted to, you could even like come and help out and like learn the culture and the space and all those things before you try to complicate it with a car. So I would start there. If there's something you want to ask me specifically, I have a very creative email address. It's hwagner@scca.com.
That's pretty tough.
Yep. And last but not least, for all of its evils, jump on Facebook and start searching SCCA groups. There's a time trials group. There's a national solo group. There's groups for regions. And just say, hey, I'm new here. I just bought a Toyota Corolla and I'm thinking about autocrossing it. How do I do that? And just only listen to the people that think that's a good idea, because the people who think it's a bad idea, just know that one day you will be faster than them and they don't want to move down the results sheet. So that's where I would start.
You know what, Miss Vicky? I think we're finally going to get to use our SCCA memberships.
Yeah.
This slash fun thing has got stuff in it. We can go do stuff besides.
Oh, excellent. We're always looking for fun.
Always looking for fun.
So, Heyward, we would love to have you back on, because again, there are so many more questions that I want to understand more about the SCCA and to ask you. So, I mean, if you're willing to come back on, that would be awesome.
I'd be happy to. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Hold another one.
Thank you.
All right. Checks in the mail, Heyward. We'll send it to you shortly. It's going to have to be a big one. You spoke nicely about us. That's fine. You have a great night, sir. Thank you.